Hi, I'm Pastor Jim Park, and welcome to There's a New Day Coming television program, which is being produced by the Hope Channel Philippines. This is a program which focuses on urban ministry around the world and is based on an upcoming textbook on mission to the cities that I'm currently editing and writing. Each of the programs will feature the personal testimonies of people who have been involved in urban ministry from different places and how it can relate here in the Philippines and in other places. You can get a lot of additional information about the program on our Facebook page, which is entitled There's a New Day Coming. Our guest today is again Kes, who is a doctor, a ministry student here at IAS. This last April, as I explained in our last program, he took a class on urban ministry from me. In our last episode, he talked about his conversion experience in southern Florida, how reading the Bible, he was convicted, not only that God was his Savior, that Jesus loved him, but now he has been called to go to Ethiopia. After buying the plane ticket, he bids his parents goodbye, and he is going to then pick up the story about how he goes to South Africa and then eventually gets to Ethiopia to continue his ministry there. Welcome, Kes, again to the program.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much. So you're on the plane. Was this the first time you ever been on a plane?
No.
So you've been on a plane before?
Many times.
And was it a long plane ride there to South Africa?
It was about 14 hours nonstop.
Okay, 14 hours. And you were telling me earlier that you were a bit surprised of who was on the plane.
Yes, because I was very surprised to see that almost everyone on the plane was white.
And so you felt that everyone from Africa was black?
Yes.
And so here you are like you're one of the only black people on the plane?
Yeah, there was about maybe 2 or 3 that I saw, yes. But other than that, an entire jumbo jet, 747, full.
Full of Anglo people, as we would say. And then when you get to the airport, you get another surprise. When you get off the plane, it isn't hot. You thought all Africa was hot. How did it feel?
Oh, it was very cold because, as you know, Florida is a very hot place. And Florida, you don't really need a jacket. And I didn't bring a jacket because in Florida it was very hot when I left. And as soon as I stepped off of the plane and into the atmosphere, I realized that it was freezing cold. And I didn't even have a jacket with me.
Now, had you booked ahead a motel and a ride to get to there? I mean, where were you going to stay? This is a totally foreign country. What happened?
I did not book anything ahead. I did not plan. I didn't know anyone. I just arrived and I just started walking out of the airport.
And who did you meet?
Then it was interesting. I met a woman. She was also an Anglo woman, she was from actually Greece. And she asked me, where are you going? Then I said, I don't know. And she said, do you need some place to stay? I said, how much will that cost? And then she showed me something that would equivalent to about maybe $2. I said, $2 to stay in some place? I was so surprised. And I said, okay, I will go. And then she took me, and then she introduced me to a man who I found out it was her husband. And then he took me into his car. Then we started discussing. And then he started asking, where are you from and where are you going? I told him that I have a plan to go to Ethiopia. And then he said, well, what are you going to do before that? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, why don't you work with me? And then he took me to his house, which was a big mansion in Johannesburg.
Unbelievable.
With swimming pool, tennis court, satellite dish. He gave me a car to drive. I had food to eat. Everything for the flesh was there for me, just like that.
Because you're a child of the King.
Praise the Lord.
Amen. And so you went to this big house.
Yes.
And this couple was like, took you in and blessed you. And you started working.
Yes.
And what did he do?
And actually, by the way, the story gets a little bit shaky. I can't go into all of it's a very long story. I just want to touch the main points.
Yes, thanks.
Well, you know, it was so nice. At first, I was working for them. I was driving for them and doing some other things, but...
Like Joseph a little bit in Egypt, huh?
Yes, and then with the Potiphar's wife, there was a little problem. But it wasn't like Joseph, that problem, but the problem was about Sabbath. She wasn't happy about my conviction about Sabbath. So when I realized that she was not happy with my conviction of Sabbath, I just said, thank you for all that you have done. Goodbye. And I just left Friday evening.
And so how long had you stayed at their house?
I'd been with them for almost 2 months. Almost 2 months, not long, but, and then, sorry, excuse me, about 1 month. And then I decided to leave that evening. I wouldn't wait, because once I realized that I had to make a decision between the Sabbath and work, I decided, no, let me keep the Sabbath. And then the only place that I really knew in South Africa was the airport. So I just went to the airport. By the way, I thanked them. I said, thank you for your hospitality, for your kindness, and I'm sorry, but I have to go, because this Sabbath is very important to me. I went to the airport and I just sat, I took my Bible and I started reading. And then all of a sudden another man came. He was also another white man. And then he said, oh, hey, I know you, I saw you. You were working with those people before.
Really?
Yeah, and I said, yeah. And he said, what happened? I said, well, I'm a Sabbath keeper. And that work conflicted with the Sabbath, so I decided that I had to leave. And he said, so where are you going to go? And then I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, you can't stay here. Why don't you come with me? And even if you don't want to speak on the Sabbath, you don't have to speak, but just please come with me. And then he took me to his house. And his house made the other house look like poverty. And he said, yes, why don't you just work with me? And then the only thing that he wanted me to do for the work was just sit around and let people feed me and take care of me. And that was my work. I don't even believe it myself. But that was the first time I was confirmed that God is serious about the Sabbath. In the first place where I was working very hard. In the second place, I was just relaxing. And that's I remember the swimming pool of the second house had a waterfall in it. I love swimming, you know. And I never had a swimming pool in America. I always wished for a swimming pool in America. And now here I am in Africa with a swimming pool with a waterfall on top of it. So that was my first experience in South Africa.
Now, I suppose you could have stayed there as kind of an adopted son, but you had a burden in your heart.
Yes, and I shared that burden with that man, and he was so kind. He said, yes.
God bless him.
He said that, yes, he has even been to Ethiopia. He's very rich. He's traveled all over the world. And he said, whenever you are ready to go, you go. But this is your house.
Wow.
This is your house. He doesn't know me.
Amazing.
And he just gave me just full authority of everything there. And I started doing my research. And what I found out is that in Africa, things are very easy. Transportation is cheap. Food is cheap. Going from one place to another is cheap. And to make the long story short, I went from South Africa to Zimbabwe by road, got a cheap flight to Kenya.
Right.
And then I'm right at the border, because Kenya and Ethiopia are bordering countries. And this is where I found another challenge that God helped me to pass also. You know, when I went to Kenya, I went to the Ethiopian embassy because they were having a struggle that time. There was a bit of conflict going on. So they were not giving any visas to go to Ethiopia. And I was so perplexed. What should I do? And someone recommended, why don't you try going to the border? And I said, okay, I'll go to the border. And going to the border means going through a 2-day journey, sitting on top of a truck, going through a desert filled with terrorists. And I went on that journey, and
God protected you.
God protected me.
And when you got to the border, what happened?
They said, go back.
Go back?
Yes.
Oh, not go forward.
Yes.
I was all set for go forward.
Yeah, no, go back. Go back. And so I went back. And I was really, really perplexed. What should I do now, Lord? Should I just stay in Kenya? Or what should I do? But something was convicting me. No, you have to go to Ethiopia. And you know, because I saw the border of Ethiopia. I saw the border
You saw
town. Yes, and when I compared the Ethiopian side and the Kenyan side, I really liked the Ethiopian side. And I said, And then I was just thinking, God, what should I do? Someone said, okay, if you want to get a visa, it's better to return back. And I was walking through Nairobi, and then I saw a flight going to America. Very cheap, about $500 to go to America. I said, God, should I really go back? And because I had never believed that God would have carried me through all that. This was about 3 months' time.
Right, you said 3 months.
Yes. And then I made up my mind. I said, yes, God, I will go back. And if you brought me once, if it's your will, you'll bring me again. And so I bought that ticket. And interestingly enough, that flight back to America stops in Ethiopia.
Stops in Ethiopia.
Yes, now
in the capital.
Yes, and that was, by the way, Ethiopian Airlines. And they have 2 flights that time to go to America. One was on Sunday, the other was on Friday. So I didn't want to fly on the Sabbath, so I took the Sunday flight. So I went to the airport Sunday morning, and then I was waiting. They said that the plane has not arrived. And I said, what's going on? They said, we don't know. Is this airlines always late? No, it's never late. So what happened? We don't know. Okay. So I waited throughout the afternoon. Late afternoon, the plane arrives. We got in the plane, we boarded, and we flew to Addis Ababa. When we landed in the airport, they said, okay, now everyone has to get off of the airplane now.
Which is unusual.
Which is unusual.
Usually you stay on the plane.
Because my first flight, it was a direct flight. We didn't get off of the plane.
But
here now we're connecting, and my first time to go to a connecting flight. And then I said, oh, wow, praise God. At least I will get to at least step in Addis.
Ethiopia.
And then there was a woman directing the traffic, and she said, oh, where are you going? I said, I'm going to America. Her face dropped. Oh, we're so sorry. The plane has left already. You have to stay here now.
In Ethiopia.
Yes. So they said, oh, don't worry. We'll get you on the next flight going to America. Imagine, I was so happy.
I know.
Yes, and she said, okay, we'll get you on the next flight. They put me in the Hilton Hotel. They were paying
At the airport there?
No, the Hilton Hotel in Addis Ababa.
Ah.
Yes. And then they said, don't worry, everything will be okay. We'll take care of you, and don't worry. And then they took me to the office, and then they said, you know, we have to give you...
a temporary visa or anything?
No, yeah, well, they gave me they took my passport, and they said, well, we're very sorry, but the next flight is not going to be until Friday. And then I said, excuse me, you know, I booked my ticket on Sunday because I don't want to fly on Friday.
Right.
Why? What's the problem? I said, because Saturday is the Sabbath and I don't want to fly on the Sabbath. And he said, what's wrong with that? I said, no, even Jesus himself said, pray that your flight is not on the Sabbath. And he said, does the Bible say that? I said, yes. And he said, show me. And I took out my Bible and I showed him in Matthew 24.
Sure.
And he said, if that's so, you will not fly on Friday. You will fly on Sunday.
Pray that your flight not be on Sabbath.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay.
And then they booked my flight for the next Sunday. So I have 1 week in Ethiopia. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, hotel fees, everything is paid for by Ethiopian Airlines. I only had $20 left in my pocket. And I walked everywhere in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa that I could walk. I walked around the whole city. And where the story becomes even more miraculous, someone had heard that I was going on Sunday, but they said, why doesn't he go on Friday? And they changed my flight unknowingly to Friday. And then they called my hotel room Friday morning, and then they said, okay, we're coming to collect you. I said, no, my flight is not today, my flight is Sunday. They said, no, your flight is today, get ready, we're coming. What should I do now? I started praying, God, what should I do? God, I already told them that I don't want to fly on the Sabbath, and what should I do, God? Just speak from heaven. If you speak, I will do whatever you say. No voice. They came, they took me, they brought me to the airport. I checked in my baggage, and I was so discouraged. And just as I was about to walk on the plane, I remember praying, God, please forgive me. This is not my desire. I didn't want to fly. And then all of a sudden I heard a voice, hey, you, what are you doing here? And I turned around, I couldn't believe it. Someone was shouting at me, what are you doing here? Why are you here? I said, I'm going to fly. He said, you cannot fly. Today is the Sabbath. You were the one who was telling me about the Sabbath. Why did you come? And he was rebuking me. I told you to come on Sunday. Why did you come on Saturday? Give this man another flight. And he made them take my baggage off of the plane and gave me back another flight on the Sunday.
So did you fly back to
Yes.
U.S. on that Sunday?
Yes.
Now, to push the story a bit ahead of time,
Yes.
you do go back to Ethiopia.
Yes.
You get your visa,
Yes.
and you go to this place. I can't say the name. What place in Ethiopia do you feel called to go to?
Well, the place is called Shashamane.
Shashamane.
Yes.
And why did you go to that particular place?
Because there was a historical land grant that was given by the former emperor, Haile Selassie. He gave a certain piece of land for anyone that has African descent that wants to return back to Africa. And he gave a certain portion of land there in Shashamane. And I had heard about that place, and I said I would go there and see that place and see if I could be assimilated there into Ethiopian society.
So that's a little bit south of the capital?
About 250 kilometers south
of the capital.
of the capital.
And so you go there to look at the property that has the potential that you can get for your own purposes, right?
Yeah,
From the Ethiopian government.
I just went there to see what would be there.
And
Yes.
so what was there?
Well, at that time it was a very small town, a very small town with not so many people. And there were a few families living there that had migrated from Jamaica and other parts of the world that had taken up that offer and returned there. And not only that, I realized that there was an Adventist college just about 10 kilometers away from that town.
You didn't know about that,
I didn't know.
but you went there and you found out here's an Adventist college.
Yes, and you know, since I had been a student in America, I said it's better that I do something here. And I asked, is there Bible or theology in this school? And they said yes. So
So
I
you
went
got to study the Bible.
Yes.
Could you carry some of your credits over from your study in the U.S.?
Yes.
Some of your
Yes.
general credits.
Yes.
So you started going to Ethiopian Adventist College.
That's right.
And then you decided to plant a church.
Yes, because you see what happened, within a very short time, Shashamane boomed and it just became overpopulated within a matter of 5 to 6 years.
How many people do you think moved into the area?
I would say at least maybe 100,000.
This boom came
Yes.
into the area.
Yes.
So you got there right before the wave came.
Yes. So what we remembered used to be a rural place that was farming, but now it is having buildings,
Buildings,
and
malls,
houses,
and houses.
everywhere.
Amazing.
Yes.
And so, how did you? You're going to Ethiopian Adventist College.
Yes.
How did you begin planning a church there?
Well, you know, in my studies, my theological studies, our professors always emphasize that we should always look towards small groups. And something that I realized that was happening with the population boom is with the Muslim population. When I first arrived there was about 1 or 2 mosques in the town, and even toward our school, toward our college, there was none. But all of a sudden, they started planting small mosques in every neighborhood. And what I realized in those mosques, they were not big; they were just small. That could occupy maybe 50 to 100 worshipers. And they were so systematic that every neighborhood that you would go, you'd find one. And they were not there before. And I was just thinking that, you know, we only have one church in the heart of the town.
A bigger church.
A bigger church, an Adventist church. And I was thinking that, why don't we follow this kind of a church planting system where instead of making a big church, we make smaller churches in every locality so that people can get to hear the message.
So don't tell me you learned something from the Muslims about urban church ministry in more localized congregations.
Well, yes, I learned.
So you were open to them even though they were Muslims, so to speak. You saw that they had a good plan and it was very effective.
Yes, their plan was very effective.
And so what was the first church you planted there? Was it a small church?
Yes, it was a small church right in the heart of that land grant in Shashamane that was given to the Africans returning to
So you were able
Ethiopia.
to get the land?
Yes, I was given the land freely.
And so you planted a church there?
Yes, that land was given to me for my own house. But I said, why should I build a house for
me,
myself
when
when
God-
God doesn't have a house?
Amen. And so you planted a church. Was it a smaller church?
Yes, it was a smaller church.
And what was the purpose of that church? I mean, what was the essence of that church as far as training the lay people?
The purpose for that church was actually to be a training ground. Because what I've seen is in the bigger churches, it gives less chances for church members to actively get involved in what? Ministry and in service.
So larger churches, people tend to say, hey, there's enough people here, I'll just come and sit.
Yes, that's what usually happens.
And so you said if you come into this church,
Yes,
the primary thing is to get trained and get involved in ministry.
that's right, that's right.
So that was the DNA of the church from the start,
That was
so
the
to
DNA
speak.
of the church
And
from
so
the
how did that, was that fruitful as far as the church was concerned?
Yes, because what happened was in this small church, it filled up very quickly, and the members were actively participating.
Now, where'd you get the members from? I mean, were they Christian? Were they from an Islamic background? Where did they come from? I mean, the town was growing, so obviously there's lots of
Yes.
people coming.
Yes, and we have different backgrounds. We have some that are coming from Muslim backgrounds. We have some that are also coming from. By the way, in that community, many of the returned people
Right.
are Rastafarians. We even have some that have converted from the Rastafarianism religion and are also members of that church.
Rastafarian, is that a Catholic type of offshoot or what?
No, it is a religion that grew in Jamaica.
I see.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
So you had those people
We
also
had those people who-
returning. You had Protestants returning.
Yes, and also other different Adventists from the, because for some it's very hard to walk all the way to the church in the town,
I see.
or also expensive if they're going to take transportation
Mm-hmm.
there. So it's convenient also for them as well.
And so people were moving into the area. You
Yes.
opened up this church.
Yes.
You had a diverse group there
Yes.
from these various
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And the church started to fill up. How many people started coming to a church?
Yeah, it would average between 30 and 50.
30 and 50.
And sometimes more, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes more for some certain special programs, yes.
And how has the church been sustained? How long has that church been in existence now?
It has been in existence now for about 3 years.
And how's it doing?
It's doing very well. And the reports that I've gotten from my friends back there is that it is growing and that everyone is so happy with that church. But unfortunately, there's a little bit of political tension in the,
Sure.
in the country, and we're praying about that. But up until now, the last report I heard last week, everything is fine, praise God.
So would your intent be that once that congregation outgrows this building, that they'll plant
That
another
is-
church, a smaller church,
that is what
in
I-
another neighborhood?
That is what I challenged them before I left. I said, please, before I come back here, I would like to see one more church like
One
this
more church.
somewhere.
Now, how long did you stay? You stayed 3 months in Ethiopia. How long did you stay the second time?
17 years.
17 years. Now, what happened during those 17 years?
During those 17 years, I can say it has been some of the most happiest times of my life.
You got married.
I got married. I finished a diploma in agriculture, a diploma in religion, a degree in theology, another degree in education, planning and management. And I've also served in our college as a teacher, as a college
How long
lecturer.
did you teach there at the college?
For about 10 years.
As a
Yes.
contract teacher?
Yes,
Full-time?
Yes, and I just recently got regular worker status. And-
Excellent.
And I'm also a principal of our overseas school there as well. And
Principal of a school.
yes, of our
Did you
school.
also travel to give training in other parts of Ethiopia and other places?
Yes, I've been traveling all over the country of Ethiopia, and I've been preaching and serving the different churches of Ethiopia.
So now you're back here at IS getting a Doctor of Ministry. What do you hope to do with that degree? I mean, after you go back, are you going to go back to South Florida or are you going to go back to Ethiopia?
Well, I think that answer is obvious. I'm
Yeah.
going back to Ethiopia by God's
And
grace.
what do you hope to do after you go back to Ethiopia?
Well, what I really hope to do is to get more involved in church planting endeavors. And I also plan to go back to the college, Ethiopian Adventist College, because it is up until now the only college that we have, and we really need to train our ministers. And I want to go back, and they have also been so supportive of me here.
Amen.
So I want to also go back and and help them with whatever I can also.
How many students do we have at the college?
It varies from time to time, but when I left, I don't know about now currently, but when I left, there was about almost 300 students.
Oh, that's a good size. How many Adventists do we have in Ethiopia?
In Ethiopia, somewhere around 175,000, more or less.
And that's a Muslim country, basically?
No, it's actually a Christian country.
Christian country,
Yes.
but there's a Muslim
But
influence.
there's a Muslim population.
What percent of the country is Christian?
Perhaps maybe about 60 to 70%.
Which is a high percentage for that part of the world, right?
Yes, it is a Christian stronghold of that region.
And you were telling me that people consider Ethiopia like the crown jewel of Africa. People look to Ethiopia. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, because Ethiopia is a unique country. It's unique in that it's one of the only country that was not colonized. It has its own language, its own alphabet, its own year, its own accounting system, and it has played a very important role in the liberation of different African countries. So many African countries and leaders look to Ethiopia. Even Mandela was trained in Ethiopia, and the other African leaders were trained in Ethiopia. And it's actually, Addis Ababa is the political capital of Africa, which has more embassies than any other place. And
Amazing.
It's also the seat of the African Union.
So God put you in the center,
In the center.
like He put Abraham.
Praise the Lord.
God bless you. We pray for success in your studies and success for your ministry as you go back to Ethiopia.
Amen. Amen.
Well, the end of our program has come, and I want to encourage you to visit our Facebook page called There's a New Day Coming. It has additional information, such as how to get the print and digital copy of the book called There's a New Day Coming, and valuable links and resources about urban mission. And remember that this program is based on Jonah 4:11, where God asked the reluctant prophet during his ministry to the lost souls of Nineveh, "Should I not be concerned about that great city? May the Lord of the harvest send out many laborers into the great cities to prepare a people for the new day that is coming soon." May God bless us all.